It looks like Lucasfilm will never learn.
The following is a world-class Bullshitters exclusive.
Star Wars The Acolyte is an upcoming series on Disney+. The show, based on the least successful era of Star Wars, The High Republic, has finished production. But the biggest takeaway from the series isn't Star Wars without war, it's the incredible cost associated with the series. And that's before a single frame was ever shot. Disney has revealed that it spent $49.2 million on pre-production of The Acolyte, its upcoming Star Wars streaming series, which is set before the events of the main movies. It's a staggering $5.5 million more than Disney spent on pre-production of 2016's big screen Rogue One. Last year's hit Star Wars streaming series Andor spent 38% more on pre-production, but it was made at the height of the pandemic, so it had to invest heavily in COVID protocols and needed its production budget to be adjusted accordingly. Even pre-production costs for the main installment of the Star Wars saga weren't far off The Acolyte. Disney only spent 17% more on pre-production of The Last Jedi, and that was a surefire hit. Yeah, but it wasn't very good. The film also had an A-list cast playing classic characters headlined by Mark Hamill in the iconic role of Luke Skywalker. Well, we're not going to go down that path. You didn't do Luke right. In contrast, little is known about The Acolyte, which is set to land on Disney Plus next year. This time period immediately set it apart from the bulk of Star Wars stories, such as the wildly successful streaming series The Mandalorian, which typically takes place against the backdrop of a widespread galactic conflict. There's peace throughout the galaxy in The Acolyte. It's set to be Star Wars without the war, which makes this blockbuster budget an even bigger gamble, especially when Disney is desperately trying to cut costs following a series of costly box office disappointments. In February, Disney chief Bob Iger told investors that the studio needs to reduce costs on everything we make because we're extremely proud of what's on screen, but it's gotten to the point where it's extraordinarily expensive. A total of 7,000 jobs and $5.5 billion of cost-saving measures followed, but even that wasn't enough. Just a few days ago, Iger told CNBC that Disney is slowing down when it comes to making movies and TV series for its Marvel and Star Wars franchises. You'll pull back on those, not just to focus, but also as a part of our cost containment initiative. Spend less on what we make and making less. Budgets of television shows are usually closely guarded secrets as studios tend to absorb the cost of individual programs and their overall expenses. However, the big exceptions are the ones which were filmed in the United Kingdom, like The Acolyte. Principal photography began in October 2022 at Shinefield Studios just outside London, where The Acolyte was reportedly filmed in front of the same stagecraft LED screens that have been used for such great effect in The Mandalorian. The location shines a spotlight on the spending. Shows made in the UK benefit from the studio tax relief scheme, which allows studios to claim a cash reimbursement of up to 25% of money they spend in the country. At least 10% of core costs of the production need to relate to the activities in the UK, and studios set up a separate television production company, TPC, for each picture. These TPCs have to file publicly available financial statements showing everything from the headcount and salaries to the total cost of production and the amount of cash they have gotten back. The UK government's regulation states that each TPC must be responsible for pre-production, principal photography, and post-production of the television program, and for delivery of the completed program. Accordingly, there is no doubt that their financial statements show all of the costs for each picture. It isn't even possible for the studios to hide costs in other companies, as the law also states that there can only be one TPC in relation to a program. The companies usually have code names, so they don't raise attention with fans when filing for permits to shoot off-site. The Acolyte is made by Blue Stockings UK Limited, a subsidiary of Star Wars creator Lucasfilm, which was bought by Disney for $4 billion. The company shares a name with the Blue Stockings Society, a mid-18th century informal women's social and educational movement from England, which emphasized education and mutual cooperation. It is perhaps a clue as the gender of many of the Jedi in the Acolyte, but there's no doubt about the other secrets disclosed in the documents filed by the company on Friday. They reveal that the Acolyte spending was forecasted to be in line with the production budget. A key condition of getting the cash reimbursement is that the production must spend at least $1.3 million per broadcast hour. Remarkably, the Acolyte has already spent nearly 5 times that amount without even including filming and post-production. Over the 18 months to September 24, 2022, the company qualified for the cash reimbursement of $7.6 million thanks to its blockbuster spending. It paid a total of $5.9 million to 62 production staff, which doesn't even include the freelancers who make up the majority of the crew on a film shoot. I guess that's where the costs are being cut. Unlike theatrical releases, which share ticket sales between studios and exhibitors, Disney Plus subscribers pay a single fee which grants them access to all of the new content throughout the year. This makes it impossible to determine how much revenue is generated by each streaming show. If they had each been screened at a theater, viewers would have to pay separately to watch each of them, all which is another reason why Iger has signified a shift towards releasing more new content theatrically than streaming. Time will tell how much of a disturbance in the Force this causes for the Acolyte. So that's all well and good, but what's the actual production budget going to be? The article compares the pre-production costs to the other Disney Star Wars films and TV shows with no war and minimal action scenes, and they cost almost as much as The Last Jedi, which is a terrible film, and it featured space battles, ground battles, and lightsabers. I won't call them duels because it wasn't very exciting. Disney has gotten out of hand with their spending, and while Bob Iger loves to go to the press and talk about how Disney is cutting back on their spending, the budget will probably be in line with other Disney Star Wars series. The Mandalorian cost a whopping $360 million so far. Andor sits between $15 to $20 million per episode. That's roughly $210 million for the first season, with another season on the way. Opinions of the show aside, they looked good, but CGI is expensive, and Star Wars CGI is next level. Without all of the CGI, the budget of the show could be much lower, but Obi-Wan, a show that looked like it was filmed in my backyard, cost a whopping $90 million. The Book of Boba Fett was $105 million. With an astronomical pre-production budget and a history of overspending, Lucasfilm is about to get hit pretty hard, no matter the cash reimbursements. After the disappointment of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, the studio is looking for something to stop the bleeding. Ahsoka could be a hit, but how expensive is that? Looking at that show, you can tell it's not cheap. Ahsoka has the best chance of striking merchandise gold since it features characters from the beloved Rebels series, but that won't be enough to save the brand across the board. Even Baby Yoda lost his marketability, and those dolls just sit around, waiting for someone to love them. The Acolyte doesn't have very much going for it in terms of hype or appeal. The actors associated with it already said something stupid like the show will make it safe for black nerds. What year is it? I guess that's the real issue here, and Disney is willing to pay whatever it costs to make the world safe for them. Commendable effort, Disney. Bravo. How long will this go on for? How long can this go on for? We're told Disney is cutting back budgets and focusing on profitability, but like a junkie with a habit or an 80s mom with a credit card, they cannot stop spending. The end is near, but what will the end look like? We will find out soon. So folks, what do you think about all of this information? The pre-production budget for this show is astronomical, and that doesn't take into account what it costs to actually make the show and post-production. And I'm sure there's marketing and advertising associated with the show too. You've seen Disney Plus commercials on other platforms, and that is not free. So it seems like Bob Iger and Disney want to tell everyone that they're going to do these things to change, but they're probably just going to sell and run away while they still have some value left in their company. Surprisingly, Lucasfilm has very little value left in their company, but somehow they have more money to spend on these productions. I guess those Jar Jar Binks dolls really did sell well in 1999, but even that cash reserve is drying up, and we're left over with what? The Acolyte, Ahsoka, shows that very few people want to watch, and even less people will watch. It's almost satisfying to watch Disney suffer this much with their Star Wars brand because, well, they made the fans suffer for a long time. They pushed out millions of people with bad content, and look at the result. Crap that nobody wants to watch because no one's around to watch it in the first place. If you like Star Wars and you're hungry for more, go to stealingsolo.com right now. Folks, I finally have the website live. You can check out the greatest Star Wars parody since Baseballs. It's the greatest what-if story of all time. What if a group of disgruntled Star Wars fans kidnapped Harrison Ford and forced them to remake Star Wars in their basement? That question and a whole lot more are answered in Stealing Solo, a Captain's Parody. So, click the link in the description below. The store is powered by Shopify, and we ship out books each and every week to you. There's limited supply available, and that's not just a marketing tactic. There are only a few hundred books left, and our audience is over 191,000, so act quickly before they're all gone. Now, this is the last time we'll be offering the original version of Stealing Solo, but like I made a promise on all of our live streams, once we sell through these, and yes, they are moving, thank you to everyone who's picked up a copy so far, once they're gone, I will go into production for the sequel. It's the parody that features Mark Hamill. And then finally, there is a third book to close out the trilogy, and that one is titled Frankenfisher, The Bride of Solo, which is about the reanimated corpse of a famous actress being dug up by Disney to make one more Disney Star Wars film. So folks, if those types of titles sound interesting to you, the only thing you gotta do is go to stealingsolo.com right now, pick up a copy, and as soon as they're gone, the sequels are gonna be on their way. But folks, thank you for watching. I'll be back next time with more, but in the meantime, be smart, be safe, be cool, but always be excellent to each other. Thanks for watching today's video. Yes, it's over, but don't cry because there's more, a lot more from World Class Bullshitters. And there's only one way to get it. Hit that subscribe button below. When you do that, you'll get notifications and updates from World Class Bullshitters every time we go live. Basically, you won't miss anything. And if there's one thing I hate, it's FOMO. But the thing most people hate more than FOMO is fear of missing out on World Class Bullshitters, because there's just some things you can't undo. So folks, do yourselves a favor and never miss anything from World Class Bullshitters. One last thing before you go, hit the thumbs up button. Not for our egos, no, they're big enough as this, but it does help us fight the algorithm here, and well, it's man versus machine, and that's the real fight. But if that's not your battle, that's okay. There's one last way you can help WCBS, and that's going over to shopwcbs.com, picking up a t-shirt, a beer glass, a sweatshirt, a poster, all sorts of ways to back WCBS. The difference between us and other YouTube channels is I'm the artist that makes all this stuff, so if you enjoy art beyond t-shirts, you can even read our comic books. We got it all. We're called the epitome of pop culture for a reason, and no, again, it's not for our egos. So folks, make sure you're involved with every aspect of World Class Bullshitters, not just for us, but do it for yourself. We're making the change in entertainment everybody out there wants to see. And a special thank you goes out to all of our wonderful patrons who make this content possible. Go to patreon.com/worldclassbs to get involved and help out the channel.